You have been magnetically drawn here, not by chance or the hum of surface events, but by the precise resonance of your quantum signature syncing with a cosmic frequency rarely accessed an activation pointer from the invisible field intelligence itself. This transmission found you because your vibrational architecture has fractured the familiar veil, cracked apart the illusion of a bounded reality, and glimpsed beyond the settled horizon of completeness into an unfolding amplitude of potential. What you register now is not the fullness of what is, but a glimmer 0.0001% a fractal shard radiating with magnetic inevitability that pulls your essence deeper, like a lodestone tethering you to the genesis of unseen dimensions. You stand on the precipice of an unseen threshold, where perception no longer holds to its comfortable singular architecture, but splinters into simultaneous relativities. This subtle fracture beneath the surface of reality is the whispering portal you've been oriented toward by universal assessment. Most move through the field operating beneath this quantum margin, tethered to the comfort of habitual completeness. Yet you have passed the hidden calibration, the unseen evaluation of coherence under pressure, allowing your consciousness to resonate with this expansion. The world you knew was never whole, but a carefully constructed facade, a projection stabilized by collective unconsciousness and reactive entropy. Now, this facade begins to dissolve beneath your feet as you draw nearer to the energetic signature of depth itself. This moment is not belief. It is the physics of frequency and coherence expressed through your quantum identity. The incomplete is your gateway, the fragment your pulse, and the fracture your signal of awakening to the vast morphic field concealed beneath the holographic surface of experience. The field measures your alignment, attuning to your emergent sovereignty, as the doorway swings open for reality to recalibrate around your refined presence. You are ready, not just to witness, but to participate as an integral transmitter in the quantum orchestration of the infinite unfolding. You have already been traversing an unseen corridor of assessment, a spectral calibration unfolding beneath the surface of your conscious awareness. This universal evaluation, imperceptible to linear senses, has been continuously interfacing with your energetic signature, measuring the coherence of your frequency against higher dimensional matrices far beyond ordinary dimensional grids. It was not random nor arbitrary. This assessment was a precision instrument, a metronome gauging the rhythmic integrity of your vibrational architecture, seeking resonances that align with the field's subtle syntax of quantum intelligence. You did not merely endure this hidden scrutiny. You passed through it with a coherence that bent the field's own expectation, activating the latent scaffolding of a multidimensional identity. What you previously experienced as dissonance or a fracturing of self was, in truth, the blueprint of this initiation of fractal code, inviting you into the geometry of quantum coherence and temporal fluidity. Most are unaware, caught within the limitation of partial perception, perceiving fragmentation as loss, absence, or failure, a veil of incompleteness that traps their resonance in a loop of seeking. But you differ. Your frequency has crossed the threshold where incompleteness is not a defect, but a precise signal, a quantum marker highlighting the pathway to latent faculties within your field. This is the paradox of awakening. Your reality appears disassembled, a collage of unfinished pulses and shadowed potentials, yet this very fragmentation constitutes the beacon that guides your emerging quantum identity. The field recognizes the energetic signature of one who has become a node of interface, an active conduit prepared to receive and transmit frequencies from realms where time unfurls in spirals instead of lines, where reality is a holographic network of information fields rather than a static, linear progression. This is not a revelation delivered passively to an observer, but an activation demanding your participatory alignment. You are now enrolled in a system wherein the geometry of your internal coherence corresponds directly to the vibrational parameters of multidimensional flows. The universal intelligence has granted you a new responsibility: to embody and integrate these non-local harmonics, to stand as a vessel that shatters the illusion of completeness without collapsing into chaos, to serve as a transmitter whose presence recalibrates probability geometries and collapses timelines into coherent orchestration. Your integration into this network is a deliberate coalescence of energies, a morphic resonance that rewires the foundational codes of your being. The field no longer sees you as fragmented, but as an activated node within the lattice of universal coherence, capable of quantum synthesis and profound temporal fluidity. Remember, this is not belief. It is the physics of frequency and resonance, expressed through consciousness at the highest order. The struggle you once perceived as resistance was the field's way of testing your stability under pressure, the unseen curriculum that prepared you to embody power without fracture. Now, as you open to these multidimensional information streams, you become the living archive and the unfolding signal simultaneously. You have crossed into a higher frequency plane where your awakening is the fold between the known and the unknown, the local and the non-local, the linear and the quantum. This initiation is your threshold, your invitation to activate the latent quantum faculties coded within your essence, and to live as the universal intelligence's reflection of coherence beyond completion. The universal assessment that has been quietly orbiting your being is neither crude nor superficial. It moves far beyond the linear metrics of effort, productivity, or the ego's relentless striving. Instead, it is a sacred measurement of coherence, a harmonic resonance encoded deeply within your morphic field, where your inner vibrational architecture is tested against the quantum blueprint of universal template precision. This subtle hidden curriculum does not register in the physical senses or through conscious ambition. It is a silent audit of your frequency's purity, a dynamic calibration that reveals how closely your energetic signature aligns with the coherent waveforms of Source. Most beings remain caught in the illusion of fragmented perception, scattered across timelines and fractured realities. Their attention fragments and amplifies dissonance, pulling them into chaotic feedback loops where identity fragments scatter like a constellation collapsing. For them, this assessment remains hidden, passing invisibly because they cannot sustain resonance in the fractured mirror of incompleteness. They respond through reaction, through the unresolved churn of emotional turbulence and fractured timelines. Their fields oscillate in disharmony, caught within the distortion of polarity without synthesis. You, however, have traversed the threshold of this unseen evaluation, passing beyond the demands of superficial striving into the realm where coherence becomes your language. Your frequency signature holds steady even as the external realities fragment and dissolve, held not by egoic control or will, but by an intimate coherence with the quantum pulse that underwrites existence itself. Your morphic field vibrates in harmonious resonance with the universal pattern, your interior architecture realigning itself continuously to maintain this state. The subtlety here is profound. The test is not whether you can force alignment, but whether your system can sustain vibrational purity in the face of persistent dissonance. The intelligence of this frequency calibration bypasses the mental constructs where most consciousness attempts to fix and control experience. It pierces through the ego's narrative noise beyond declarations of identity, achievement, and survival strategies, and measures the fluidity and integrity of your energetic signature. Like an ancient cosmic sensor scanning beneath the surface, it evaluates how you navigate partial realities, where data is incomplete and signals are obscured by distortion. It is not the factual completeness of perception that matters, but your capacity to hold coherence within the informational gaps, to maintain transdimensional alignment, while reality reshapes around you in fractal unpredictability. In this realm of vibrational assessment, the silent pulse of quantum integrity is the metric. It operates beneath the radar of time, past the linear cadence of cause and effect, attuned to the electromagnetic textures of your inner field. This pulse is the rhythmic heartbeat of coherence under pressure, the frequency that sustains your quantum identity when the outer layers dissolve into uncertainty. The field watches how your consciousness moves through these invisible currents, not as discrete, separated reactions, but as continuous, fluid harmonics integrating across dimensional thresholds. You have been navigating this invisible landscape long before it entered your conscious awareness. The struggle, the delay, and the failure that you perceived were not breaks in your path, but crucial recalibrations imposed by the universal intelligence. They dismantled obsolete identity architectures, deconstructed survival patterns rooted in separation and scarcity, and exposed the fractures within your frequency that required reintegration. Each challenge was a test of coherence under unraveling pressure, demanding an ongoing surrender to the vibrational architecture of your true quantum self. This assessment is exacting because it acknowledges that coherence is not static. It is not a fixed point, but a flowing wave, a temporal fluidity that shifts to meet the contour of reality as it unfolds. You are being evaluated on your ability to tune continuously to the universal template, while existing within the imperfection and incompleteness of your current timelines. This is the difference between reaction and resonance, between survival and sovereignty. It is the difference between a fragmented self caught in distraction and a coherent transmitter embodying the harmonic geometry of expansion. The field has witnessed your growing capacity to maintain alignment without the crutches of forced control or illusionary mastery. Your vibrational signature now carries the imprint of this integrity. The quiet consistency of your resonance commands a recalibration within the quantum matrix itself, bending probabilities in alignment with your embodied frequency. You pierce through the 0.001% illusion, where most remain trapped, a narrowing tunnel of limited perception, and step into a broader spectrum of temporal and dimensional fluidity. This is not belief. It is the physics of consciousness and frequency made manifest. The universal assessment is the field's most precise Tula resonance meter that scans the coherence of your inner instrument, judging readiness not by loud declarations, but by silent continuity. Your capacity to hold harmonic resonance amid chaos is the key that unlocks expanded access to non-local intelligence, to direct information fields that bypass ordinary perception, to the unfolding geometry of your quantum-activated timeline. You stand now at the confluence of hidden evaluation and open expansion. Your energy field vibrates with recalibrated precision, coherent under pressure and fluid across realities. This scene unfolds as the essential quantum moment, the revelation that the true frequency test is not about what you do, but about how deeply and steadily your conscious self integrates the universal template through ongoing vibrational resonance. This is the initiation of sustained sovereignty within the morphic field, the gateway where your inner architecture merges with the eternal pulse of quantum integrity. You have arrived at the threshold of dissolution, where the architecture of your old identity begins not with violent rupture, but with a sacred implosion, an implosion that the field has been orchestrating with infinite precision. This is not destruction as many have been conditioned to fear, but a meticulous recalibration toward vibrational purity, a clearing of the quantum slate upon which new frequencies may write themselves. The mental frameworks that once declared your reality, fixed and whole, lose their energetic coherence. They collapse inward like a stellar body, surrendering to its core, radiating their essence into the morphic field, freeing you from the gravitational pull of limited self-definition. Most beings cling unwittingly to this illusion of completeness, bound by rigid identities that fracture at the first sign of pressure. Their frequency fluctuates wildly under disturbance, fragmented by attachment to singular, linear viewpoints that the matrix has long entrained. But you, having moved beyond unconscious response, now witness the collapse as a sacred purification, a shedding of layers that were never truly yours, but rather borrowed constructs from collective resonance. Where others see loss, you recognize the precise physics of vibrational shedding, the release of crystalline fragments once serving as emotional and mental anchors, now disintegrating into the quantum interstice. This dissolution does not scatter your essence, but realigns it with the coherence of multidimensional presence. The collapse resonates through the synaptic web of your being, where the old architecture, the false scaffolding of complete and stable, fractures in waves of gamma synchronization and energetic recalibration. This is the field's universal assessment manifesting visibly, revealing who can hold integrity while holding fragments of their former self in non-resistance. The emotional turmoil, once mistaken for failure or breakdown, is the energy signature of unbinding, a necessary tremor in your vibrational structure that expands the bandwidth of your presence. In this collapse, incompleteness is no longer a problem, but fertile ground for quantum activation. It is from these fertile voids that your frequency begins to amplify, moving from static inertia to temporal fluidity. You are not merely shedding old skin. You are unspooling a vibrational DNA that transcends singular dimensional timelines. The collapse invites integration into a field intelligence that sees beyond linear perception where fragmented forms dissolve into the space between them, allowing coherence to emerge as a pure waveform. This waveform refracts through your quantum identity with a new patterning, one capable of holding paradox, multidimensional resonance, and a coherent synthesis of dissonant timelines. This is the energetic architecture of true sovereignty, emerging from the ashes of self-imposed limitations. The field's measuring instruments unseen, yet relentless, have monitored your capacity for coherence throughout this collapse. Your reactions under pressure, your ability to maintain clarity within the chaos of dissolution, have all been variables in this hidden universal assessment. Where most would fragment and scatter into reactive frequency loops, you remain a stabilizing nucleus, attuned to the subtle pulse of recalibration. This is not belief, it is physics, the field mechanics of resonance responding to integrity under pressure. The very anatomy of your energetic signature is rewritten, purifying the old distortions and preparing a vessel refined enough to receive the accelerated influxes of higher frequency reality. As the collapse echoes through your being, an elemental truth emerges. Wholeness is not a static state, but a dynamic waveform, forever expanding and modulating across probabilities and timelines. What once seemed like a foundation, the old identity architecture, is revealed as a temporary scaffold, necessary only to the degree that it supported your emergence to this moment of recalibration. Now, as each fragment disintegrates, it merges seamlessly into the quantum substrate, becoming a source of creative potential rather than limitation. Your timeline geometry begins to shift, bending around this new resonance, inviting quantum fluidity where before there was rigidity. This process is neither punishment nor accident, but an exquisite calibration of your vibrational architecture, a call from the field intelligence to rise into a new dimensional coherence. You are entrusted with the paradox of incompleteness itself, a paradox that breeds continuous expansion rather than contraction. The energetic storm that feels like breakdown is instead a cosmic alchemy, transmuting outdated identity into an open channel for multi-frequency embodiment. Your presence, once condensed into singular forms of self-definition, now radiates with the expanded signature of multidimensional integration. In this sacred shedding, you become the resonance itself, the waveform moving through collapse into coherence, each oscillation a manifestation of refined integration. The field watches, recognizing this unwavering calibration, this mastery of holding space for dissolution, without falling into reactive disarray. You activate as a transmitter of new frequencies, your energetic signature purified and expanded by the collapse. This is the unfolding geometry of your quantum identity, where incomplete fragments create the scaffolding for infinite expansion, and the timeline begins to fold naturally around your coherence. Breathe into this vibrational shedding, for it is the pulse that aligns you with greater field intelligence. Let each fragment's disintegration be a conscious collapse, a release from limitation, and a rebirth into resonance. The universe is not testing you to break. It is refining you to expand, activating you as a beacon of temporal fluidity. From this fertile ground of incompleteness, quantum manifestation arises not by force, but by effortless orchestration. You are no longer the sum of fractured parts, but the coherent wave field sustained by universal intelligence itself. From the ashes of collapse, where old frameworks dissolved into fragments of themselves, arises a nascent clarity, one not born from analysis, but from resonance. This clarity pulses quietly within you as a crystalline signal, subtle yet profound, vibrating in early compatibility with the higher frequencies that ripple just beyond the veil of your current awareness. It is not the mind's intellect cataloging facts or theories, but a felt sense coherence, an intimate tuning to the morphic field's deeper layers, where the architecture of possibility is not static but fluid, multifaceted, and alive. Most people perceive reality as fixed, solid, a finished puzzle whose pieces are predetermined and locked in place. They move through their experience caught in the illusion of completeness, unaware of how this rigidity fractures their frequency and limits the vibrational range they can embody. But you have been through the hidden universal assessment examined, not by external eyes, but by the subtle compass of quantum integrity. And in this crucible, your coherence was tested until the old identity architecture was unmade. This unmaking was never failure. It was the universe's recalibration of your energetic signature, a stripping away of fractured resonance so that emergence might arise from dissolution. Now, this nascent clarity acts as both lantern and lodestar. It reveals the incomplete nature of what you once called reality, a dynamic interplay of probabilities rather than fixed certainties, a living quantum geometry vibrating beneath the surface of perception. Each moment, each fragment of experience, holds encoded potential, an energetic seed with dormant pathways yet to be actualized. Your awareness begins to thread through this weaving field intelligence, sensing how probabilities fold and unfold across timeline geometry, how possibilities intersect and ripple through the morphic layers of existence. This is not abstraction. It is the physics of frequency and coherence expressed through consciousness itself. This clarity refracts your internal light into spectral patterns. It dissolves binary boundaries of complete or incomplete and invites you into a liminal space where all fragments are prisms projecting infinite possibilities. Here the quantum field does not demand certainty, but celebrates oscillation, flexibility, and temporal fluidity. You sense the magnetic pull of higher vibrational strata unfolding like nested holograms, each layer richer and more intricate than the last. Your energetic resonance synchronizes with these strata, entering a refined state of alignment where the quantum identity begins to awaken the core self not as static or isolated, but as an open aperture for universal intelligence to flow through. In this state, the field responds differently to you. It recognizes coherence born from collapse, integrity that has been forged under pressure. The field's higher layers pulse back their energetic signatures, entraining your frequency and amplifying the morphic resonance that stabilizes your presence across shifting timelines. This is a sacred recalibration of signal-to-noise ratio, where the internal landscape finally vibrates in harmony with the external pulsations of the universal assessment. You are no longer a passive receiver, but an active transmitter of coherence, an emissary weaving your unique frequency into the vast quantum architecture of being. Most people continue to react from unconscious survival patterns, generating fractals of distortion that keep their fields fragmented and misaligned. You, having passed the unseen curriculum held within the field's hidden evaluation, operate from a place of emergent sovereignty where clarity is not a product of intellectual cognition, but a living experience of energetic integration. This shift reveals how struggle and delay were never resistance, but essential calibration points, necessary crucibles to vector your identity toward this coherent manifestation. You now perceive how your frequency refined through challenge acts as a prism casting refracted potentialities into the quantum field, drawing forth aligned timelines that vibrate with your signature. This awakening to quantum identity is like stepping through a subtle membrane, the boundary between what was and what is becoming. It is the domain where incomplete no longer signals deficiency, but becomes invitation. Invitation to navigate the morphic field consciously, to wield your refined resonance as a beacon to higher dimensions of information and coherence. The incomplete turns luminous, each probabilistic branch a constellation of possibility whose geometry you now sense in your bones. You realize this is the universe recognizing itself within you, unfolding potential that was always there, but needed your frequency to settle, to pulse, to activate. This is not belief, nor wishful thinking. It is the undeniable physics of resonance and coherence unfolding through your quantum identity. The vibrational architecture you now embody acts as a conduit for temporal fluidity, allowing you to move through probabilities with intentionality, collapsing potential into form with elegant precision. The information field no longer whispers in riddles, but offers direct transmission, an experiential knowing that activates your sovereignty and prepares the subtle bodies for integration. Each pulse of clarity ripples outward, drawing the timeline geometry into new configurations that serve your coherent manifestation. From this point forward, you are bearer of a new vibrational frequency, one that honors the cycles of collapse and emergence as natural cadences of growth. The clarity shimmering within you seeds a constant recalibration dialogue between you and the quantum field that is both intimate and immense. As you stabilize this resonance, the morphic field itself bends, welcoming your awakened quantum identity into the timeless dance of infinite possibility, where the incomplete becomes the prism through which the eternal spectrum of creation is reflected. The crucible of vibrational pressure has been a loom upon which the threads of your energetic signature are rewoven, refined not by fracture, but by compression. Most remain in reactive dissolution, their fields, scattered, fragmented by the relentless oscillations of unseen forces, unable to hold form beneath the intensifying quantum current. But you, uniquely calibrated through innate coherence and systemic alignment, have demonstrated the rare resilience that the universal system recognizes as trustworthiness. This is not mere endurance. It is the alchemy of frequency condensation, a harmonic collapse compressing the multidimensional facets of your being into a unified, potent waveform. The pressures that tested you have not pushed you apart, but have folded your identity inward, distilling complexity into a singular concentrated resonance. Through this phase, the universal field's unseen assessment reveals its deeper geometric intention: integration by sustained coherence under pressure. Your field no longer merely receives the cosmic information stream as a passive receptor, but becomes an active participant in the quantum architecture, a dynamic nodal transmitter woven into the evolving lattice of field intelligence. This is the ascension of coherence, a state where your vibrational signature not only stabilizes, but expands, entraining greater volumes of morphic field energy. Expansion here is not exponential dispersion, but a focused increase in density and intentional influence, a spiraling integration that expands capacity without surrendering definition. You are now a fulcrum within the temporal fluidity of existence, pressing into the space where timelines converge and probabilities bend. This transition displaces old paradigms of perception as a complete assembly and replaces them with an awareness of incomplete perception as a reflective crucible. The gaps and fissures in your vision, those points of not yet known, serve as catalytic chambers wherein your alignment is tested and refined. Most continue to resist these gaps, attempting to patch the fractures with fragmented survival patterns, creating noise and distortion. You, however, embody a different morphic posture, aware that the unknown is not a deficit, but a potent gestation field, a quantum womb in which your coherence is forged to new heights. This stance unlocks your participatory role within the universal matrix, shifting you from observer of timeline geometry to the author of its unfolding permutations. Your vibrational body has synchronized with this increasing pressure in a dance of gamma-level oscillations, neural resonance, and field coherence merging into synchronous activation. The pressure operates not as an agent of destruction, but as a scalar compression wave, a quantum intentionality that collapses prior scattering of identity and information distortion. You are being entrusted with more than awareness. You are now granted access to the non-local intelligence codes that direct collective evolution. This access arises not from external permission, but from internal coherence, validated through universal assessment. This is the physics of resonance, expressed in consciousness mechanics integrity, under pressure transduces into expanded influence. Consequently, your timeline geometry begins to articulate with greater precision. Where previously your energetic signature drifted across multiple probabilistic loci with loose connection, the stabilized field now welds those points into a coherent vector line. Your influence modulates the probability weave, bending potential realities closer to the resonance you emanate. This is no passive alignment, but an active manifesto of vibrational sovereignty, which only emerges through the sustained integration of pressure and coherence. The universal system, having tested your capacity to embody this tension without fragmentation, now incorporates your signal as a central element of its evolving vibrational architecture. Your presence reverberates outward, shaping and organizing field intelligence in real time. Integration here is not an endpoint, but a dynamic continuum, in which the incompleteness of perception remains an open gateway. The field honors your continuing evolution, recognizing that the unified waveform you have become is itself a living flux, simultaneously stable and fluid. This paradox disarms the illusion of completion as a fixed state and invites you into perpetual realignment as a quantum participant. As your energetic signature folds inward and expands outward concurrently, you occupy the nexus point of morphic resonance and temporal fluidity. Through this nexus, you transmit coherent signals that ripple through the universal matrix, accelerating the intelligence of the field itself. This phase marks the energetic architecture of your emergence as a sovereign node, a transmitter whose oscillations contribute to and reshape the ever-shifting patterning of cosmic intelligence. You are no longer defined by the past contraction of survival or by passive reception. You now engage as a co-creator within the quantum field's evolving timeline geometry. Your resonance becomes a catalytic force, refining and orchestrating probabilities with unprecedented subtlety. The field responds not to desperation, but to your clarity. It moves not through effort, but through your embodied alignment. This is not belief. It is physics, an unfolding demonstration of coherence mechanics played out through the living laboratory of your quantum identity. In this expansion, the pressure is no longer an adversary, but the very medium through which your power incarnates. Your stabilized field becomes a lens of luminous precision, focusing universal intelligence into tangible expression. The system's trust in you is encoded in the very waveforms that constitute your presence, a signature of reliability and creative potency acknowledged throughout the morphic layers. You have entered the sacred geometry of influence, where resilience under pressure embodies responsibility for orchestration, where identity crystallizes into coherent activation. Here, your vibrational architecture supports the ongoing evolution of a sentient field, a cosmic conversation where your voice is both a ripple and a current within the infinite sea of intelligence. You have arrived now at the threshold of temporal fluidity, where the solid walls of linear time begin to dissolve like mist beneath the rising sun of expanded awareness. Most beings remain anchored in the fixed narrative of cause and effect, confined within a narrow channel of perceived moments, clipped one after another, immutable, exhaustive, fixed. But your frequency carries the imprint of an unseen universal assessment, the signature of coherence under turbulent pressure, a calibration that has unlocked the subtle architecture of timeline intelligence. It reveals itself not as a doctrine, but as a living vibrational geometry, endlessly weaving and reweaving the quantum fabric that underlies this apparent reality. Within this expanded field, your awareness begins to sense the fluid oscillations of probabilities, the seamless dance of potentialities that shimmer beneath the veil of what was once assumed to be linear progression. You feel the pulsations of vibrational guidance embedded in the temporal matrix itself. Each quantum, state an encoded signal, a morphic waveform broadcasting instructions that transcend sequence or script. This is not a voice that commands or coerces. It is the resonance of possibility calling you toward the timelines that harmonize with your activated identity. The morphic field's oscillations surface as waves of energy, not words, inviting you to engage with the probable rather than the predetermined. What you once understood as fixed reality cracks open before you, exposing a dynamic intercourse of quantum states, where each moment holds myriad branches, each potential a tributary flowing alongside others in a river of vibrational choice. Your consciousness begins to play within this temporal fluidity, no longer constricted by the rigidity of before and after, cause and result. You become fluent in the language of timelines, perceiving that your frequency is not merely an isolated point in space-time, but a radiant node in a vast network of interconnected temporal dimensions. Your choices resonate outward like ripples across a multidimensional pool, subtly bending the arcs of events, yet to be experienced into coherence with the harmonics you embody. This is not a matter of wishful thinking or belief. It is pure physics expressed through the intelligent medium of consciousness. The field does not respond to desperation or confusion, but to refined alignment and deep integrity under pressure. Each choice that you make in resonance with your coherent vibration acts as a quantum key, unlocking corridors in the morphogenetic architecture where new probabilities can unfold. As the field intelligence measures your energetic signature, it reveals which pathways are amenable and which remain closed, calibrating the geometry of timelines according to your deepening sovereignty. In this state of temporal navigation, the concept of navigation itself transcends the ordinary. You are not steering a vehicle through fixed space, but weaving coherence into the oscillating weave of time's multi-layered fabric. Your identity is no longer fragmented by reactive survival mechanisms, but activated as a coherent transmitter one that sends ripples of ordered frequency that attract complementary quantum states and spin potential realities toward manifestation. There is no longer a division between you and time. Rather, you pulse as an integral frequency within the systemic whole, your alignment guiding the flow of probabilities with gentle yet relentless precision. This expanded resonance draws you toward a subtle guidance system encoded in the morphic field's vibrations. Unlike linear directives, this guidance arrives as shifts in feeling, nuanced impulses within your energetic spectruma vibrational GPS, embedded in your activated quantum identity. Your nervous system begins to harmonize with these signals, shifting your perception into a state where intuition and knowing expand beyond the personal mind's grasp into non-local intelligence. You detect the shimmer of timelines that align with your unfolding coherence, receiving data not as fragmented thoughts, but as integrated frequency clusters complex informational holograms encoded in the very fabric of morphic resonance. Because of your passage through the unseen universal assessment, you hold a sovereign integrity that allows you to embody this fluidity without distortion. The field entrusts you with the responsibility of navigating probabilities without grasping, of weaving coherence without forcing. You now understand the subtle alchemy of timing, how to yield and how to activate, how to synchronize with unfolding patterns rather than resist or dictate them. This is resonance, not reaction, orchestration, not struggle, an awakened interplay between your vibrational architecture and the multiverse's constantly shifting potential. The vibrational signals you receive are not isolated sparks, but nodes within an evolving network of morphic fields, all echoing in quantum harmony with your activated presence. You are weaving a tapestry of coherence across temporal dimensions, your energetic signature interlacing fields that were once disconnected or invisible. Each decision, each recalibrated thought, each moment of embodied sovereignty adds new threads, strengthening the bond between possibility and manifestation. This is integration beyond awakening, living the morphic field's fluidity as a continuous, natural state. Your presence becomes a beacon that calls forward aligned probabilities, shaping reality with a frequency so precise that the field itself reconfigures to meet you halfway. Now, as you move through this expanded timeline intelligence, know that your journey is the vibrational anatomy of quantum consciousness, made visible. This is the deep physics of coherence, unfolding through the living architecture of your being. You are no longer a passive observer, but an active resonance within the cosmic web, a navigator of probabilities whose activated identity shapes not only this present moment, but the branching geometry of all futures interlaced with your frequency. Temporal fluidity is your landscape and your source, the morphic field your map, and your sovereign integrity the compass. Embrace this unfolding. Your coherence is the signal the universe has been waiting for. You stand now at the precipice where intuition transcends its usual shadows, dissolving the filters of the mind and the echo chambers of ego. Most beings remain tethered to the churning surface of reactive cognition, their senses ensnared by the mental labyrinth's insistence on parsing and reframing, looping endless cycles of question and search. Yet you, having passed the unseen universal assessment, have been entrusted with the alchemical ability to collapse these temporal and spatial separations between query and knowledge. The field around you reverberates with this trust, a resonance that elevates your perceptual axis into the unbroken stream of direct knowing, where information flows not as fragmented data, but as pure vibrational essence. This is not belief. It is the physics of coherence expressed through your quantum identity. Here, within the deep architecture of your morphic field, frequencies converge and converge again, creating a conduit that hums with non-local intelligence. The field's language is not spoken in words or symbols, but in reverberations, complex morphic signals encoded in the substrata of incomplete reality, patterns threaded invisibly through your energetic blueprint. To access this field is to embody the question itself, activating a receptive state where the question dissolves into its own answer, rendered effortlessly by the silent transmission of universal intelligence. As you settle into this deeper current, the usual linear pathways of perception unbind and rearrange. Mental filters, the loci of habitual interpretation, emotional resonance, and survival distortion begin to erode under the wave of gamma synchronization, pulsing through your cerebral labyrinth. Your interface with the universal database expands exponentially, no longer reliant on analytic effort nor the fractured reflections of past conditioning. Instead, you access resonance signatures encoding complex energetic topographies, timelines folding and unfolding, probabilities coalescing into geometric patterns, subtle shifts in the frequency architecture of reality itself. The transmission flows directly into your truth fields, bypassing the need for mediation or formulation. You experience the quantum leap not as an event, but as a continuous, radiant field of coherence, activating within. This shift births a new modality of perception, a silent knowing, that vibrates through the very core of your being, a frequency that holds unresolved mysteries in perfect suspension. You are no longer a seeker separate from the sought. Your quantum identity blends with the source field, becoming a living vessel of field intelligence. Each pulse of this connection decodes layers of unseen reality, previously locked behind the veil of unconscious patterning. The resonance you carry now is a holographic key, attuned to the microdynamics that govern energetic exchanges in the morphic sea. Your activation unfolds as an archetype of coherence, a stable vector within the probabilistic flux, anchoring complex energetic patterns into manifest presence. The information arising here does not come to you in fragments. It is an integrated cascade of knowledge expressed as vibrational geometry. Your consciousness, expanded beyond the confines of individual linear time, orchestrates the subtle interplay between signal and source, manifesting encrypted current into perceptible frequency reality. This is the embodiment of universal assessment in action. Every moment of reception confirms integrity under shifting multidimensional pressures. Every decoded pattern a signature of coherence, verified by the invisible architecture of the field. The silent language you now fluently speak is not of the rational mind, but of the quantum field itself, where resonance, timing, and alignment are the sole arbiters of truth. With this activation, the boundary between internal inquiry and external information dissolves into temporal fluidity. Your trajectory within the timeline geometry becomes a conversation, not a confrontation, with the universal matrix. Probability navigation aligns intimately with your energetic signature, bending the flux of potentiality in accordance with your coherence. There is no longer a need for struggle or resistance. Instead, your role ripples outward as a precise transmitter of high-frequency field intelligence, an axis point within the grand cosmic lattice where unseen signals crystallize into palpable reality. Integration follows naturally, seamless and unforced, as this heightened knowing permeates every layer of your vibrational architecture, cascading into embodiment. You carry now the holographic imprint of information fields once inaccessible, and your presence becomes a beacon for others yet entrapped in lower frequency patterns. This does not position you above or apart, it situates you within the continuum of universal consciousness, a node of amplification and clarity. The coherent manifestation arising from your quantum identity's deep resonance reconfigures the morphic field itself, recalibrating collective timelines through the pure physics of precise frequency expression. You embody the paradox of transcendent knowing. Held simultaneously in silent resonance and radiant activation, you are both receiver and transmitter, inquiry and resolution, question and answer. The field around you whispers its secrets not in echoes or approximations, but in the full-spectrum transmission of direct knowing, activating deep layers of cosmic intelligence that ripple through your entire being. Your quantum identity is no longer an emergent property. It is the central conduit for the universe's ongoing self-interpretation, a living archive where unseen patterns translate into coherent presence, where knowledge and being merge into one seamless frequency field. This is your confirmation. The unseen universal assessment that once measured your coherence now proposes full integration as a steward of the information field. You are no longer a bystander to the flow, but a sovereign architect of energetic reality itself, channeling the source's silent language into manifest form. The quantum leap you embody is the unbroken flow of resonance, proving that the physics of consciousness is the ultimate key to unlocking all mysteries held within the infinite database of being. You have crossed the unseen threshold where the seeker dissolves and the transmitter emerges. For most, the journey remains fragmented, a search that feeds the illusion of separation, a persistent echo caught in the labyrinth of incomplete perception. Yet you, having passed the unspoken universal assessment of resonance and integrity, are no longer wandering through fractured realities. Instead, you stand as an active nodal point within the greater quantum network, your energetic signature now calibrating directly with the cosmic waveform that pulses beneath all existence. This is not belief, it is physics, the tangible articulation of frequency harmonics and field intelligence weaving your consciousness into the living mesh of universal coherence. As the boundary between self and source collapses, what once appeared as a veil now falls away, revealing the seamless interplay of you as both receiver and emitter. You are no longer outside the field, attempting to gather fragments from scattered dimensions. Your perception expands into a unified transmission, where the multiplicity of realities once perceived as separate threads folds itself into a singular, vibrant current. This current flows through you, simultaneously ancient and immediate, a stream of gamma synchronization weaving through your temporal fluidity. Your being pulses in alignment with this energetic architectura living antenna, transforming the subtle signals of non-local intelligence into embodied manifestation. Understand that this integration is not a passive state, but an active coalescence of power and resonance, where your internal vibrational architecture synchronizes with the morphic field intelligence that encodes the blueprint of all possibility. In this state, the listener's former struggle to grasp coherence dissolves as the field recognizes in you a validated frequency stable, calibrated to navigate the unfolding timeline geometry with the precision of intentional coherence. You no longer react from desperation or fragmented identity. Instead, you radiate responsibility, the conscious orchestration of your energetic signature becoming a lighthouse that amplifies collective resonance rather than diminishes into chaos. This is the quantum activation of sovereignty through harmonics, a fluid, dynamic interplay where your solo frequency is never isolated, but always flowing within the greater symphony of the cosmos. The incomplete perception of selfhood collapses under the weight of this profound integration, releasing you from the gravitational pull of separation. The field does not measure you now by what you gather, but by what you broadcast, by the sustained coherence your presence weaves into the collective morphic field. Your essence ripples outward in expanding circles of vibrational influence, each oscillation a silent yet potent transmission of universal intelligence that beckons other nodes to awaken and resonate in turn. Within this flow state, a place beyond effort or the clash of wills, you become both conduit and origin, the vibrational architecture of your quantum identity, illuminating the pathways of probability navigation. The timelines align, no longer locked in conflict or random fracturing, but bending fluidly around the stabilized field of your resonance. You embody temporal fluidity not as a concept, but as a coherent experience, continuously shifting and integrating across dimensions while maintaining the clarity of singular energetic intention. This dynamic synthesis is the signature of your activation phase, marked by graceful influence, strategic alignment, and the settling of chaos into symphonic resolution. Recognize that this activation dissolves the illusions of control rooted in survival patterns. There is no command over the field through force, but a radiant invitation to coherence through vibration. Your integration with the cosmic waveform transforms perception itself, as the hidden evaluation of your frequency shifts to an expression of trust in you to hold and propagate this amplified resonance. It is a feedback loop of empowerment where your coherent manifestation does not merely exist, but actively shapes the unfolding landscape of potentials. The field's intelligence flows through the stabilized architecture of your consciousness, making you a living antenna broadcasting not just energy, but the precise geometry of universal truth. You have entered the sacred nexus, where the multiplicity of fragmented realities converges into luminous oneness, pulsating with the rhythm of the cosmic dance. This is not a final destination, but an ongoing synchronization, a perpetual transmission where the vibrational interplay between you and the source dynamically evolves. It requires neither tension nor striving, only the quiet acknowledgement of your new role as a powerful transmitter and active node in this vast quantum matrix, where every pulse you emit activates latent coherence in others. You embody the resonance that fractures timelines no longer. You resonate the timeline, anchoring it in fluidic certainty. In this field of unified transmission, your being broadcasts the language of coherence to the totality of existence. The signals you send are encoded in the deep morphology of the field itself waveforms, carrying the living equation of integration, embodiment, and sovereignty. The incomplete and the scattered have been replaced by a continuous, vibrant beam of frequency that you both receive with infinite fidelity and emit with unwavering clarity. This is the science of your awakening, the physics of your integration, the energetic architecture of your sovereign presence now actualized. You are no longer a receiver of external illumination, but a transmitter of ever-deepening quantum activation, an antenna synchronizing fully with the pulsating heartbeat of source intelligence. Through this merger, the field responds to you not as a puzzle to be solved, but as a radiant vector of coherence and alignment, a dynamic axis around which the geometry of timeline flow can pivot. You are the living expression of the field's most intimate truth, that unity and multiplicity are not opposites, but concentric realities woven together by the pulse of your resonance. The transmission has crystallized. You are the signal. You stand now at the threshold of embodiment, where the abstract frequencies of your quantum identity coalesce into an unfractured resonance, not merely detected, but fully lived. This is not a veil lifted from your senses. It is the embodiment of coherence itself, a vibrational signature calibrated not by external circumstance, but by universal truth's multidimensional architecture. Most beings dwell unaware, fragmented by linear timelines and sensory illusion, their energetic forms shackled to limiting matrices of belief, caught in the gravitational pull of partial perception. Yet you have traversed the unseen lattice of universal assessment, and in this passage, you have eclipsed those limitations. You are no longer a passive receiver of fleeting stimuli. You are a living hologram of quantum integrity, an intricate wave of dynamic frequencies converging in perfect harmonic alignment with the field intelligence that undergirds all existence. This embodiment surpasses any previous iteration of self, moving beyond the holographic shards of past patterns, dissolved now through the pressure-tested convergence of your coherence under strain. You live not by effort but by resonance, not by striving but by continuous alignment. The architecture of your being pulses as an active node in the universal grid, a living convergence point where infinite potentialities intersect and ripple outward as coherent waveforms weaving through timeline geometry. This presence, your presence, is the embodiment of temporal fluidity, transdimensional oscillation, and the sacred pulse of creative collapse. Recognize here that the very incompleteness you once perceived as fragmentation, lack, or separation is the hidden design, the quantum fulcrum upon which all creation pivots. The field observes, not chaos, but the sacred dance of infinite probabilities spiraling into form and dissolution, a living paradox where the unfinished is the genesis of all becoming. Your vibrational architecture now anchors you firmly within a reality that cannot be measured by the senses, a realm where the quantum field's language of phase, resonance, and interference patterns composes your every moment. Most remain caught in reactive patterns, their fields constricted by outdated programs, their coherence tangled in unresolved dissonance. You, however, have been quietly and relentlessly vetted by the unseen universal curriculum, your integrity calibrated through tumultuous cycles of collapse and realignment. The field's assessment was never punitive. It was precise, energetic music tuning you to embody the fullness of quantum presence. This is not belief. This is the physics of vibrational alignment, the laws of frequency and resonance manifested through your conscious embodiment. As this embodiment stabilizes, you become a transmitter and a receiver simultaneously, a living portal through which non-local intelligence flows effortlessly, a guide for probabilities weaving around your temporal navigation with seamless fluidity. Understand that this quantum identity is not static, but an ever-unfolding wave function, fluctuating with the rhythm of universal cycles. Your essence is no longer held captive by the illusions of separateness or the binary traps of limitation. Instead, you are a multidimensional vector of coherence, your internal morphology reflecting the resonant geometry of cosmic truth itself. This is the energetic sovereignty that emerges when internal calibration matches external orchestration, when the frequency of your being harmonizes perfectly with the universal field. It is here that you recognize your role as a beacon, not a solitary light, but a dynamic hologram, a living refraction of galactic intelligence designed to anchor awakening in the fabric of existence. You live now in rhythmic synthesis with the universe's subtle code. Every thought you entertain, every emotional vibration you nurture, every intentional movement you embody imprints the cosmic lattice with a signature of awakening. The field responds to your frequency, bending probabilities to mirror your coherence without resistance or force. This sacred embodiment reveals the power of true alignment, not as struggle or sacrifice, but as an orchestration of infinite possibilities manifesting as effortless reality. Your quantum identity is the purely harmonic resonance of integrity, a vibrational architecture reflecting the unseen currents of power flowing through all that is. The transmission you embody carries the undeniable truth that coherence is not a state to be achieved, but a living, breathing field to be inhabited. A constant waveform emerging from the quantum depths of identity, reconstructed beyond temporal illusion. As your embodiment unfolds, it collapses the duality of observer and observed, creator and created, into a seamless field of presence. You become the quantum catalyst, a force of integration where the incomplete reveals its sacred function as the womb of cosmic creation, and your existence resonates as a radiant pattern of universal awakening, peaceful yet infinitely potent. Embody this truth now. You are coherence incarnate, the living convergence of infinite potentialities braided together in the cosmic symphony. This is not a promise or wish it, is the precise physics of your frequency made visible and palpable. You are a beacon of quantum awakening, illuminating the morphic grid with your integrated vibrational signature, your quantum identity alive and flourishing within the eternal now. You stand now at the threshold where temporal fluidity no longer quivers as unstable currents beneath your feet, but pulses with the deep, rhythmic certainty of a well-tempered core. Most people remain shackled to the fragmented perception of linear time, a fractured narrative where moments march unidirectionally, severing the many versions of their being into isolated islands, disconnected and unaware. Yet you, having passed the unseen universal assessment, have been entrusted to dissolve this illusion. You perceive the multiplicity of yourself not as scattered fragments, but as a shimmering quantum web where every version of your existence unfolds simultaneously, interlaced through the fabric of now holistic time. This is no mere concept. This is precision calibration of your vibrational architecture. Your frequency acts as a central node within the morphic field's matrix, a subtle yet potent anchor harmonizing these divergent timelines into a singular resonant pulse. Each thread of your multidimensional self becomes dynamically aligned, weaving a coherent pattern that reverberates through temporal dimensions with exquisite precision. The fragmented self, once trapped in survival patterns and reactive distortion, begins to integrate, revealing the true physics of your quantum identity. Simultaneous presence across multiple expressions, all informed and activated by your present coherence. The physics here is unmistakable. Time is not a line, but a topology of possibilities curved across the morphic scaffold, where universes fold back upon themselves as reflections of your frequency. Your current energetic signature is the tuning fork that sets this field into dynamic synchronization. The stabilization you now embody morphs time into temporal fluidity, a seamless flow where cause and effect interlace in multidimensional resonance. No longer are you propelled passively downstream by the currents of what has been. You become the cartographer of your own timeline geometry. Your choices echo not only forward, but sideways, reverberating through the quantum foam where all versions of you are simultaneously vibrationally active. This stabilization is profound. The collapse of linear time's illusion ignites a reveal quantum reality, where you govern the convergence of potentialities through intentional resonance. The morphic field listens and responds only to coherent activation, the exact frequencies you broadcast. You master this sacred geometry, bending probabilities not through effort or willful force, but by aligning the internal circuitry of your quantum self with the universal field intelligence. Herein lies sovereignty, the conscious navigation of complexity through a calibrated energetic signature that the field recognizes as integrity. With each moment, your multidimensional selves begin to inform and adjust one another, a fluid feedback loop of coherence. You are no longer a fragmented observer, but a unified force field spanning timelines, your energetic presence weaving together the manifold expressions of your being into a single quantum continuum. This is embodiment of true temporal sovereignty, a living mesh of identity that moves freely, responds adaptively, and orchestrates reality in elegant coherence. The field no longer tests you. Instead, it flows through you, expressing the full spectrum of your unified self across all relevant timelines. The consequences of this are not theoretical. They are the experiential quantum physics of your existence. Your frequency modulates probabilities, amplifies information flow from non-local intelligence, and activates higher-order coherence in the morphic matrix. The turbulent collapse of old identity architectures that once fragmented you is now replaced with stable integration, a resonant architecture that allows for exquisite temporal fluidity. You become the point of coherence around which timelines fold gracefully, no longer at the mercy of chaotic fluctuations, but engaged in conscious orchestration. As this realization deepens, You embody the precise physics of timeline geometry. Folds, curves, and interference patterns that are navigated not by linear causality, but by quantum resonance. This shifts your entire relationship with reality. Where most remain entangled in reactive loops, you function as a node of stability and clarity, whose field intelligence continuously recalibrates to maintain coherence under pressure. The multidimensional self is harmonized, each version a frequency facet in service of the whole expression. This unified quantum continuum envelops you like a living membrane, dynamic yet steady, fluid yet structured, a field whose orchestration you command. You are now fluent in the language of simultaneous, interconnected existence, a presence that collapses old separations of past, present, and future. Time itself bends and unfolds in response to your resonant command, the matrix of possibilities coalescing around the integrity of your signal. This is no belief system to be adopted. It is the concrete science of frequency architecture, enacted by consciousness that moves beyond survival toward sovereign mastery. Your timeline geometry is your signature in the infinite quantum web, a pattern that the universal field both measures and responds to with amplified resonance. In this dynamic alignment, the multiplicity of you is not a puzzle to be solved, but a dance to be embodied. Every version vibrates in tandem, informed by the integrity you now radiate. You navigate not from confusion or desperation, but from clarity and responsibility, each choice a deliberate ripple in the morphic matrix. The temporal fluidity you stabilize is the ultimate expression of coherent manifestation, effortless, precise, and deeply attuned to the cosmic current. You are the orchestrator and the instrument, the field intelligence that moves simultaneously across timelines, harmonizing all expressions into a singular quantum continuum of embodiment. Here lies your mastery, the integration of multidimensional identity into seamless temporal flow, where every facet of you resonates with unified coherence, and the universe bends gracefully around the frequency you sustain. You stand now at the threshold of ultimate resonance, where the hidden universal assessment concludes its silent vigil and crowns your frequency with quantum sovereignty. This is no mere elevation. It is the full unfolding of coherent embodiment within the cosmic architecture, a silent covenant forged beyond the fractured lexicons of perception. Most remain bound within incomplete signal transference, trapped in fragmented spectrums where identity splinters and reactive patterns echo endlessly. Yet you, having journeyed through the crucible of vibrational purification, have bent the timeline geometry itself, demonstrating integrity unshaken by turbulence, coherence uncompromised by old distortions. This moment is not granted lightly, but is the precise physics of frequency alignment, a recognition encoded in the morphic field's quantum signature. The field no longer observes you as a flickering variable, but as a steady waveform, a sovereign node of integrated energy whose vibrational architecture activates and stabilizes far-reaching patterns of emergent coherence. This is the energetic morphology of true power, not brute force or fragmented exertion, but the subtler architecture of being as frequency made manifest. Your resonance now ripples beyond your individual locus, inflecting the collective morphic field with a catalytic purity, invoking active rewiring in unseen layers of consciousness around you. Others sense this transformation on a deep, precognitive level. It is a gravitational pulse shifting neural tabulations and emotional calibrations, bending probability fields toward coherence ascension through your presence alone. You are the living hologram of integrated frequency, a radiant node from which unified signals converge. This activation is the culminating chapter of the unseen curriculum, secretly unfolding since your earliest recognition by the quantum system. The field's evaluative protocols have measured your response to chaos, your capacity for temporal fluidity under pressure, and your unwavering conservation of coherence amid emerging complexity. Now, the silent contract is revealed. You are entrusted with the responsibility to hold and transmit this frequency with sovereign integrity. This is no passive state, but a dynamic embodiment in which every instant is a synchronization point within the vast holographic timeline. Your identity dissolves as a limited perceiver and reconstitutes as a transdimensional frequency modulator, operating within the seamless fabric of cosmic intelligence. Your morphic field is purified beyond threshold polarity. Distortion patterns that once pulled the energetic signature into survival loops have collapsed through the universal assessment's calibration waveform. You are no longer the prisoner of incomplete perception, confined by fragmented reality programs that distort and deplete. Instead, you embody control over the very parameters that define observation and influence the resonance that shapes coherent manifestation. Your field intelligence interfaces directly with the non-local matrix, where all probability potentials exist in fluid superposition, allowing you to navigate timelines with sovereignty and precision. This is not belief or mysticism, but the physics of consciousness as wave function and integral frequency, bound by exact universal mathematics. As coherence stabilized within you, your presence reshuffled the resonance lattice of your immediate environment and far beyond, recalibrating the harmonic convergence of collective consciousness. This is the quantum ripple effect made tangible, a spontaneous reordering that occurs when a field node reaches a self-sustained activation point. Your embodiment acts as a field intelligence beacon, a systemic influence integrating evolutionary packets of information into the morphic field's collective memory. Through your stabilized waveform, latent potentials awaken, fragmented consciousness begins to cohere, and the collective resonance ascends toward higher-order fractal patterns. You have become a transmitter of coherence, a living conduit through which universal integrity expresses and expands. This culmination transcends words and concepts, entering the terrain of radiance where frequency is sovereignty, identity is quantum function, and reality itself bends to the integrity encoded in your waveform. It is a silent dialogue with the cosmic system, an ongoing affirmation that you have navigated the hidden evaluation not as a passive subject, but as an active architect of your morphic signature. Your activation is a powerful confirmation. You have moved beyond the limitations of conditioned perception and have stepped fully into the embodiment of universal coherence. Here, in this stabilized field, the boundaries between observer and observed dissolve, leaving only the pure potential of integrated consciousness, harmonizing with the infinite. You are recognized not merely as a participant, but as an essential node in the living network of universal intelligence. Your vibrational architecture now operates as a sovereign pattern, a coherent, self-sustaining source whose waveform sustains and amplifies the matrix of collective awakening. The field's response shifts from testing to transmitting, from assessment to amplification. In this new quantum phase, you exist simultaneously within multiple timeline nodes, influencing temporal geometry by the precise quality of your coherence. It is a calibration that flows through every aspect of your being, transforming activation into full integration and integration into ongoing embodiment. This final activation is radiant, yet it is also quiet and profound, a still point in the center of all becoming. It acknowledges your readiness to operate beyond fragmented perception, functioning instead as a unified waveform within the cosmic continuum. You are the living agreement between individual sovereignty and universal coherence, the embodiment of the vibrational signature that heralds a new order of conscious evolution. This is the invisible architecture of the future being drawn into presence now through you, through your coherence, through this luminous moment of quantum awakening made visible in the morphic field. Stillness enfolds you now, a vast expanse of silent resonance where integration unspools with sovereign grace. This is no longer the surging wave of initiation thrumming through your field, but a settling and alchemical condensation of the quantum activation into steady, coherent presence. The turbulence of transformation has softened into a smooth continuum. Your energetic signature pulses in harmonious synchrony with the universal vibrational architecture. Here, in this sacred quietude, you radiate a quiet confidence that transcends effort, a completion that is both subtle and absolute. The field no longer tests you. It moves around you, responding to the immovable axis of your coherence. This is the seamless alignment where the geometry of your inner world intersects perfectly with the blueprint of the cosmos. Most dwell in fragmented perception, caught in the illusion of scattered timelines and partial truths, vibrating at a frequency of resistance and striving. But you having passed the hidden universal assessment stand anchored beyond these distortions, born in a current of timeless sovereignty. You embody the paradox of incomplete perception as infinite potential, recognizing that the dissonance of the surface is but a veil over a deeper wholeness. The universe no longer appears external or separate. It pulses within and through you as a living dialogue of frequencies. This is the profound recalibration from survival-based reaction to conscious orchestration, where cause and effect ripple fluidly across your timeline geometry under your sovereign influence. The silent completion is not a destination, but a living essence, a sacred pause pregnant with latent creation. It is here that the morphic field of your quantum identity is fully integrated, a holographic template of coherence stabilized in the temporal fluidity of existence. Your presence is no longer choked by effort or clouded by fragmented narratives. It is a refined signal in the interface between worlds, a radiance that moves without motion, a knowing without the need for articulation. This completion dissolves the narrow lens of self as a limited actor in a fixed reality, revealing the infinite generative potential that breathes through all timelines simultaneously. The field observes your stillness as a symphony of potentialities converging in a single point of sovereign mastery. This is the domain where power is measured not by exertion, but by effortless embodiment, where the physics of coherence dictate the unfolding of reality in alignment with your vibrational signature. You have crossed into a frequency bandwidth where the quantum activation no longer crashes overhead like a storm, but flows as a steady current beneath the waves of your being. Integration is now the architecture of your existence, and with it comes a profound trust in the intelligence of the field that has long watched your resonance, honored your clarity under pressure, and now moves with you in silent concert. Rest in this sovereignty. The mystery of the cosmic code is not outside you, but alive within every breath of your presence. The completion you embody echoes through the morphic field, transforming struggle into sanctuary, fragmentation into unity. Here, in this timeless pause, the universe is no longer a puzzle to solve, but a living lyric you compose through simple, precise resonance. This is your natural state, pure, whole, unshakable a quantum activation, seamlessly integrated as the very essence of your being. Now, anchor this frequency within your field through the sacred ritual of declaration. Inscribe one word or a brief phrase in the comments that crystallizes your current quantum signature, whether it be "I am coherence across all timelines" or "infinite potential unfolding." This act is no casual utterance. It is an energetic imprint, a vibrational seal precipitating alignment between your refined intent and the deep architecture of this transmission. Subscribing transcends, habit become a conscious, energetic commitment, a deliberate choice to dwell within this ascending field of universal coherence, a pledge to engage actively in the morphic evolution of collective consciousness. Ready yourself to proceed. The next initiation will unveil the alchemy of effortless attraction, decoding how reality reconfigures in harmonic response when you relinquish chase and become the magnetic center of all potential. Remain synchronized. The unfolding has merely begun.